patience. That's the first thing. Nothing comes easy. I had to work very hard for everything that I learned in Wing Chun because I was 33 when I started. My body had been, I've been athletic my whole life, and my body was pretty much set in its ways. I also grew up at a different time where fighting wasn't uncommon. I mean, I was never a brawler or a troublemaker or anything like that, but sometimes you'd have to take care of yourself in the city just cause. Or if you're out late at night as a young person, things happen and things like that. But I've learned patience. I've learned tolerance. I've learned patience in teaching because different people learn it different. Everybody's different. Everybody learns a different way. You can look at your best student when you're trying to talk about a concept that interests you, and you see a blank look on their face. Now, it doesn't mean that you failed teaching. It doesn't mean that they're dumb as a student. It means that there are a lot of things to do, to take care of, and get involved with in martial arts, and or to learn any art form. It emphasizes the economy of motion and the economy of usage of energy. And you find yourself not doing things that you don't have to do. If it's not necessary, I want to save my energy and use it somewhere else more productively. Um, Economy of motion, economy of energy. I mean, they become a little bit inseparable when you apply them in your daily life. But if I don't, there's no reason to, beat myself up and push myself if I'm not going to get something done. Better to save that energy and focus it in a situation to where there's more productivity for everybody uh, involved. So you learn to be economical. I think you learn not to clash force against force too. So if you're encountering something that just isn't going to move, maybe you should change your tactics. If you encounter complete and total resistance, um, you can learn this in miniature, although life teaches it to everyone. Sometimes you knock on a door and the door doesn't open. It's just not for you. No matter how much you want, how much you desire, you're not going to get this. Or the door isn't going to open. The opportunity isn't going to be there. The opportunities that I waited for in my other interests before I thought I even had the slightest idea I was going to become a professional martial artist. Um, they were, yeah, I was very focused on it. This is what I wanted to do in life. But that changed because the doors didn't open and they did open here. And I think you learn to be comfortable with that. And also, uh, as time goes on, you learn to read the signs and go, this is where I should go and save myself some energy and save myself some movement. And the potential for getting more out of your daily activities and out of your life is certainly there. Well, Wing Chun has had a troubled political history. Um, People always not getting along, and these things probably go back to Hong Kong in the 50s. I have no idea. But if your Sifu says, "Oh, this is a bad guy, you shouldn't hang around him," and this, that, and the other, we had an interesting experience at a tournament because we did try to do 3 tournaments, and everything went well until the fight finally broke out. Been brewing for a long time. So, we had 3 tournaments, and they actually went quite well. There were some, well, I had some trouble with some of the teachers favoring each other's students. There was biased judging, all kinds of things, but a couple of very interesting things happened. Number one, there were guys that came from nowhere that just wanted to meet Wing Chun people and even compete just because they wanted to be around it. Younger guys. We had 2 guys come up and say, I saw your video, and they were fawning over some of the other names there. And, these guys drove all night after getting off their second shift job you know, probably had a quart of milk and six Oreo cookies before they came to the tournament. And it was all that, they slept in the car, these guys. And I kind of like that because it let me know that Wing Chun people, young people want to test themselves, martial arts, and probably in every, if they're game, I mean, if you're in business, you want to show your chops, whatever you're in. So I quite like that. I thought some of the other teachers snubbed them a little bit, but they came to compete. And I think that first, I think that competition would be good for Wing Chun. It certainly has turned jiu-jitsu into a worldwide phenomenon. Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's they had very similar problems. I think the '90s in Rio de Janeiro was like the Wild West. I mean, there were people challenging each other all the time, fighting, and there are plenty of videos available about this. And Carlos Gracie Jr. put together the IBJJF, and he developed a tournament that would run on time, and people couldn't wait to sign up. They started here in the '90s at some point. I'm not really familiar with the beginnings of jiu-jitsu competition, Brazilian jiu-jitsu competition in the United States, but the Pan Ams were the only competition that were held here. They started out with 150 people from all over the country. And now they've got 3,000 plus. I mean, I can't even keep track of the figures. So there's a jiu-jitsu school that's vibrant and on every corner in most streets, I mean, in most cities in this country. It spread like wildfire because they did it well. They made it clear it was an effective system, okay, in the early UFCs. As a stand-up fighter in those days, I can tell you that a lot of people were very, very concerned because it sent the grappling sent shockwaves through the stand-up community, and I think the intelligent thing is to look at it and go, this needs to be dealt with. Let's just accept what's going on and pay attention. Things change, things evolve. We live in an age of information, and we can get more information um, than in any time in history about anything that you can think of. I'd like to see some competition because I think it would be healthy. The competitions we did, there were definite tensions between certain Sifus there. But after every match, the two guys or gals that were fighting went off to the side, and you could see them talking to each other, like, "How did you do this? You did this to me." And I thought, they don't need us. Why don't we keep our prejudices out of this? All of these age-old rivalries, which have nothing to do with us as individuals here. This is an inherited feud that has nothing to do with me, and it's not helping the system. I think that Wing Chun is behind a little bit uh, in martial arts because of that, because of the internal fighting. Okay. I also think it's encouraging because that younger people in Wing Chun don't seem to care about this. That's good because there's very little to care about. I I've trained with two Sifus, and both of them, have put me in situations where I was defending the banner of the school or the lineage. I didn't have any real reason to do that. Uh, the guy that I was faced off against, it's just another Wing Chun guy, as far as I'm concerned. Just another athlete out there that you're playing against. That's it, as far as I'm concerned. This is the way I'm looking at it. And this is going to send a message all the way back to Hong Kong. Who cares? Who cares? It's going to send a message to who? I mean, number one, you're overrating the importance of this little moment. There have been thousands of these things since Wing Chun came from Fatsan to Hong Kong. So it's just another scuffle, And most people arch their eyebrows and roll their eyes and leave. So I think we could move beyond all of that with competition. I think in competition, you can separate sheep from the goats. Now, the first thing and most important thing is that anybody that wants to compete should be able to compete, have the experience. It'll do wonders for their self esteem. And even if they get absolutely hammered at some point, I mean, that probably isn't good for anybody's confidence. Down the road, they'll have to come to terms with it, which all athletes do. What happens when things go pear shaped? At least they have the experience. They can look back and go, well, it wasn't that great, but at least I had the guts to do it. And um, I think that that's an important thing for people on an individual level. So, but also the cream will rise, and you'll see who the good Chisao guys are, and you can have a nice Chisao rivalry competition uh, across the country, maybe across the world, if you follow the right model. Or the third thing is that we could do full contact Wing Chun, which, right, I could just see half a dozen people standing up in the room go, no, 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 it's too dangerous, it's too deadly. It's like, come on, man. How do you practice every night? Somebody get killed in your gym? Don't keep talking like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, if we have a clear set of safety rules, I mean, chopping people in the throat, stomping on their knees, and um, cavity strikes, all this kind of stuff. I mean, you can control this. Okay. You're supposed to control it. You're a martial artist. Okay. In a self defense situation, you really have to decide how far you're going to go. Okay. Unless it's like a guy in a hockey mask with a chainsaw, at which point you got to do what you got to do to stop this guy. But, in most situations, you're not even sure that it's going to kick off as a fight in the first place. So, you know, slamming elbows into somebody's face once you've won the fight repeatedly, you've got to have a little restraint at this point. So, I think that if we had full contact sparring, Wing Chun people, you'd find out who could handle it, who couldn't, who was really outstanding, and then you can put them in other competitions. And, with a little grappling, you could put them in the UFC. And then Wing Chun doesn't have to struggle for a place it rightfully deserves. YouTube is YouTube for everybody, and some people just shouldn't do YouTube. Uh, you shouldn't videotape what they're doing. And, if you take a random search, you get to hear and see all kinds of things out there, the good, the bad, the ugly. That could clear some of that up. In other words, show us what you do. And the naysayers won't come, and eventually people will just come. I think that people would come and train, and I think it would be good for the system. And I think that, last but not least, with this, you should have, with a competition, you should have, very clear cut rules of sportsmanship, like the same thing that you would run into in a high school football game, pretty much, or a basketball game. Yeah, things erupt and fights break out, but for the most part, they don't. You're able to play a 60-minute football game and a 90-minute soccer game and have it proceed and end according to plan without anything other than the usual trash talking that goes on with us in a sporting competition. Well, I think that that would help. I would like to see a more homogenous Wing Chun community, a more fit Wing Chun community where people train for competition, train hard, they show up in shape, and they're bringing their best game. And I think that that drives the art to both reach the standards that are sitting right in front of your face that your teacher tells you about. It forces more people, or it enables more people to train harder and reach a higher standard. Um, and eventually, I mean, that will be what's expected, and people will have a better idea of what Wing Chun is, what it's supposed to be, and get rid of some of the silliness because it evolved silliness, feuds, all of this, it evolves out of insecurity. I know something you don't know. or maybe I don't know something you know. And that's, you know, I don't think that it's necessary to go through all of that. I think that it's a good idea for people to work together, um, train together. Harmony is better than disharmony. Well, they should expect a little nudge to get in better shape if they're not already doing some cardio and some strength training. They should also expect to keep the rules. Essentially, all martial arts schools have 20, 30, 40 guys and women, if you're lucky, okay, throwing punches at each other. You got to lay the boundaries have to be very clear. And people need to approach each other respectfully, realize that you need each other. And the guy giving you the hardest time is the guy that's doing you the biggest favor. To this day, um, I owe Phil Glapion a lot just for being the tough guy that he was and giving me problems to solve and making me decide whether I wanted to get up on a Saturday morning and do this or whether I want to roll over, sleep till noon, and then watch college football Saturday afternoon. You know, do I want to get up and have a hard training session with a guy like that? Or I just want to sleep and get up and do things. You know, it's a choice that you make. Well, I think that when you take up a martial art, when you take up some physical discipline, you're investing in yourself. You're investing in your life down the road. If you've ever been to a high school reunion, there are people you haven't seen for 50 years or whatever. And, you know, you last saw them when they were 16, 17, 18 years old, kids. Then you see them years later and you can recognize that this is how their face evolved. But, you know, they're often out of shape, living on meds, things like this. And I'm not saying that martial arts will prevent illness nor or prevent uh, having to take medication, but I'm saying that it will help you live a fuller, more active life. You won't be as limited as you might have been if you just sat on the couch. And doing nothing um, leads to a less productive life. Getting up and being physical, you avoid physical problems. Of course, if you push it at the other end and, you know, train hard, take up Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, what's going to happen is you might, it's not if, it's when you get injured and you're going to have to deal with that. That's also part of an athletic life. But one of the things I've always felt that I did was when I'm dealing with guys from that are in their 40s, even 50s, now that I'm older and have taught these guys for a while, is that you're giving them their life back. You're giving them their athletic life when they were young. They played sports. Um, it was something that they had in their hip pocket. It was part of their identity. They identify with the people in the school, and this is nothing but positive. You know, you have an enthusiasm for life because there's it's so multifaceted. You know, and you have your energy. Recently, I've been reassessing my sleeping patterns, and because like everybody else, I got turned around during the pandemic, and a good night's sleep. Uh, you know, you have more energy the next day. I mean, if you live this way, then you're going to feel this way. And um, Wing Chun means eternal springtime, which is another way of saying forever young. And it keeps your mind active. You're using both sides of the brain, all kinds of things like that. But you just feel more capable and engaged and a part of life instead of sitting out to the side. Now, I'll be the first to admit that there are plenty of martial arts eight balls out there that have gotten very weird, sitting in their room and hanging around with their buddies and all that sort of stuff. But if you approach it in an adult fashion, and this is one of the things I always enjoyed about Hong Kong, is that you're dealing with grown men who have families, who have lives, who live their life in up to the expectations of the Chinese culture. They're in business. They're self-sufficient. And they approach martial arts, they approach Wing Chun a little bit differently. It's a part of their life. Okay. It's not something you do so that everybody will think you're cool. Okay. Or something to establish your identity in high school. He's a football player. He's a jock. Uh, he's in band or whatever, or in a band or whatever you did. I mean, it's more of a matter of something in your life that enhances your life that you do for yourself, because the rest of life is very much out of our control. The Philip Nearing School of Wing Chun is located at 2643 West Chicago Avenue. We've been at this location for a year. It's the same building as Rep's Gym, and we're in Ukrainian Village, just west of Western Avenue and just east of California. We have classes throughout the week. Right during the day, Monday through Friday, I do private lessons. Uh, Tuesday and Thursday, we have beginners and women from 6 to 7. Okay, they're two separate classes. We do have a women's class taught by my wife Sharon, and those classes are for women 6 to 7 on Tuesday and Thursday, and they run simultaneously with the beginning classes. The beginning classes, some women are in them, but if women want to train with women, they can do that. This is followed by an intermediate advanced class from 7:30 to 8:45 on Tuesday and Thursday. Saturday, we have a beginning class from 10:45 to 11:45, Qigong at noon, and that's followed by an intermediate advanced class from 12:30 to 1:45. Uh, every other week, we are substituting an instructor's class so I can spend some time with the people that really help run the school and work on advanced material. So we alternate on weeks between an intermediate advanced class after the Qigong class or uh, the instructor. But there are plenty of classes Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday throughout the week, and also on Monday, Wednesday afternoons, and Friday afternoons and evenings. We have private lessons. So I have some people that aren't able to get out of work and need to come by afterwards for their private lessons.